I wanted to ask you, before we sort of talked about, there are actually 3 projects here, and they were started in 2002, and the last one, Basic Divisions, was completed this year in 2007, is that correct? Yeah. So I wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about what your impetus was for the project when you first started out and you were invited to the mill.
Well, I hope it looks like 5 years, but it really wasn't 5 years. It was kind of complicated. I think at the time that I was asked to do the lab grant, I really wasn't used to working collaboratively with somebody. I've had a really kind of traditional studio practice where I like to do things by myself. I'm sort of a control freak. So it really did take 5 years to sort of kind of know how to collaborate. And so I think that was kind of, once I figured it out and kind of, can people hear me? Get used to working with other people. I think that's really why it took so long. And also to a new material. So this is, I guess, the power to the flower first. I'm not exactly sure, but the flower had been in the work for a long time, from going back to '86, probably with a piece using Warhol's flowers and the graphic icon and kind of a dingbat. They're called dingbats. So I had been invited to Poland, of all places, to be in a biennial, and I did a series of flags called Flags of Revolt and Defiance. And I liked that I could kind of use the tradition of the flower power, Warhol's kind of icon, to a kind of homemade protest. It was right around the beginning of when we first went into, I think it was Kuwait, not positive, but. So I liked this idea of handmade and kind of protest. And so I wanted to make my own flags. I found these flags, and I cookie cuttered the flag design, which were these. And there were, I think, a group of 10 individual flower dingbats, which I took, and I like this, I appropriated from Warhol. So that started the flowers, going back and then bringing back the flowers from the flags. And the flags were done at Columbia University, and that took a long time until I could figure it out.
The naming center.
Yeah, the naming center, that body of work. Then when this body of work started, I was interested in sort of playing. This is called Power to the Flower. Again, with the flower, but more of an abstract, the beauty of the flower. So, and also showing each of the different shapes of the flowers. So that's how the flower started.
And I think it's interesting that you're taking something that has this sort of political meaning behind it, and sort of first the idea that you're sort of turning it around the other way as this other experience, this more sort of joyful, celebratory, but still radical interpretation. And
all of those, that series were based on the idea of love. And so trying to bring back, I thought the world and the art world, in my very corny way, needed some love. So there was, what's love got to do with it? Crazy love, love crazy. There was, you know, if you go through whatever, I've had a lot of love titles. And so the flowers kind of brought back that idea of sharing and beauty and love. But also, you know, you can still think of the kind of iconic use of the flower. My 60s.
Yes, I was going to say you're a 60s.
It was definitely, and I think we can use some more of that. But you know, what was interesting to me about the comment when people looked at these, and it didn't occur to me, is that the paper looks a lot like fabric. And a friend came in and said, oh, people thought the paper was fabric. And that was something I really, honestly, didn't think about. But if you think about paper, you know, why did I have this problem with this? You know, because it has cotton, it has linen, you know, it relates to paper. But I was trying to, it's kind of hard when I think to translate what you do in one medium, how you translate one medium, which is my sculptural installation, to another medium. And that I was really kind of worried about, and so I think that's why it also took a long time to kind of conceptualize and figure out what I wanted to do with the paper.
Well, I think it would, the analogy to the cloth is interesting. It would have been like, you know, actually eating the cloth before you died, and I'm thinking of the Powerpuff Girls and those other tie-dye installations on fabric that you've done, the relationship to this. I think also it's interesting is kind of how fluidity has sort of come into the work. I know that when you were doing the floor installations, you've spoken about this nature, the idea of being able to spill the dye onto the fabric and kind of find yourself back in the, I would say, a little bit of a domestic space with the vats of water and the intersection of the pigment in the.
You're talking about also
the
idea with the basic divisions. Well, first of all, you know, the opportunity to have somebody make beautiful marbleized paper, which is, you know, I love marbleized paper. I think that most people do. It's, you know, it's just like cotton candy or something. It's just so gorgeous. And the paper came first, and also the whole thing with chance in the work, and I think there's a lot of chance and fluidity of form in the marbleizing. And I did not do the marbleizing, and there are two different hands in the marbleized paper. And so it's interesting. I think two different paper artists made it, and I think and collaborators, and you can kind of see that. But what I love is I think that if we got another person in there, each person, you know, if you look at marbleized paper, every time it's different. And so for me, the idea that the forms are just, you know, there's so many different possibilities of the kind of form and the fluidity of that. And then, which is in a lot of the work, this kind of control and out of control. So for me, the marbleized paper is really kind of beautifully out of control, like a beautiful spill. And then what I wanted to, and we came back with in the flag book, and everybody has to make sure they get a poster. That's the great thing. I love the poster. We made a poster for the show. And on the poster, you can see, maybe somebody can hold up, Peter, because this size, you can see what I took from. And when I worked with the Polish flags, I took standard flags and from this flag book. So this chart was also in the flag book, and I love this idea of, you know, how to make a flag and the rules and the kind of order of that. But then, almost like taking something like it looked like Donald Judd or, you know, the Minimalist to me, and I thought it was really, the chart was really beautiful. And then what we did was, and I had an assistant, which was interesting. I'm so much about my hand, but there's nothing of my hand. I didn't make anything in this room, which is such a delight, let me tell you. Using wonderful craftspeople. So these are all lines following this chart. And for me, so ordering something that's so beautifully fluid and out of control and giving it a structure. And what was curious, what we did do is, the paper was made before, and it kills me. I ruined, before I knew exactly what I wanted to do with this, a couple sheets that to this day, how could I do that? So it's just, because this paper for me is so precious, it's so beautiful. And also you can see it's very irregular. One of the frames, which I love about this grid, is you think it's a perfect grid. And the number 6 down from the left, in yellow with the kind of 3 stripes, that one is a little bigger. So they had to make a frame a little bigger. So which is amazing, is you think you have this, you know, on one hand, this control, this order, and we kind of matched the colors to the original ideas that I wanted one of every color. And then because I ruined a couple of them, we don't have one of every color. And then when the second collaborator, I think it was Paul, came in and made paper. I think I just said, this color, that. And so what I like is it's sort of not a, it's like this system, but not a system. And that's sort of all my work is like, I have this idea, I start with this idea, and then it just, whatever happens. So that's basic division school.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is the star power in the back. So when I look at that, the first thing I think of is a little bit of Betsy Ross, number 5, you know, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that work. So can you talk a little bit about why you decided to
Well, you know, it was like the stars and the flowers. The stars, I think, are more pointed. And the interesting thing about the flags for me is using the stars, using stripes, using all the kind of serious flag things. It's kind of a way of being irreverent. I think I did a piece early on that I had forgot that in fabric, responding to certain flags, and I could throw them on the floor and nobody knew, you know, if it was a real flag,
right.
I couldn't do that. So I like taking these icons that and they're very beautiful. The star is very beautiful, but also has this kind of serious iconography. And this is all based on, you know, the one star on generals and on their, you know, patches or whatever those things, emblems and things like that. And I like this idea. This is the only star piece I think I've ever done. And I really, so in this wonderful flag book that I've appropriated and ripped off, there was a chart of the flags. And then we played with, what I love to do is play with different color combinations. So I think in the book it was probably red and white. And in flags, colors also have a lot of different meanings, obviously, you know, from every one. And so in this one, I wanted all the different kind of primary colors, because if you think about it, the primary colors are what the world, you know, is just really and black. And so that was my kind of showing the possibilities. But the star was also really so it's a very beautiful, very iconic, but it also has this kind of serious element, structure behind the icon. So it's trying to be irreverent in my own way. So that's where that one. I forget, that one's called Star Power.
Star Power.
Right. I like it.
The word power keeps coming up, and I'm again sort of taken back to the 60s a little bit, which is great. I think that's really wonderful. It's sort of this interest in engaging the viewer in a way, and I think really you know, asking them to sort of re-experience and rethink these things. I think that's my sort of.
You know, I think what I wanted with all of these things is that you're operating on a few different levels. If you want to think it's just a beautiful star, you can think it's a beautiful star. I'm fine with that because I think they're beautiful stars. But there's also this kind of history behind all these very simple signs. And that's sort of what I was interested in. And then I love when he's just kind of messing that up.
Yes.
That's